I just want to say good morning. Well, it's almost afternoon. My name is Amanda Brothers, and I'm honored to be here with you today. Some of you may wonder why in the world I am up here, other than I have a few good jokes and I can carry on a good conversation. And then some of you know me and know my journey and where I've been the past 10 years. So I want to share with you how I've gone from homelessness to my master's degree in 10 years and what role OCTC has played in this. In 2012, I found myself living in a homeless shelter in Texas with my 1-year-old son. We had just been kicked out of our home by my now ex-husband, thank goodness. And I was raised a pastor's daughter, so this is not where my life would end up as I thought. I thought I would be, serving people, a missionary, probably in Africa, not in a homeless shelter in Texas. Over the next 2 years living in that shelter, I took the time I needed and utilized the resources around me to finalize my divorce and to rebuild the foundation for my son and myself. I became an office manager at a pregnancy center, and I finally felt like I, for once, had control over my life. In 2014, my world was flipped upside down yet again. Both of my parents were diagnosed with cancer 1 month apart from each other. My father had colon cancer and my mother had leukemia. We almost lost my father that year due to complications with his surgery to remove the tumor. In September of that year, my mother called and said, "I need your help. I can no longer do this on my own." 3 days later, I had sold all of my belongings, loaded up my car, and my son and I moved to Owensboro. I had no idea this move was going to change my life forever. Once my father's health had stabilized, I decided I needed to once again start working on a new foundation for my son and myself. This is when I learned about the Learning Villa here in Owensboro. And if you don't know what that is, it's a scholar house, but you have to be enrolled in school in order to live there. So I enrolled at OCTC. When I first started, I was going to be a nurse, and then I decided medical coding was a good job for me, and then I transitioned to human services. Thank goodness the registrar's office and the advisors did not strangle me. During this time at OCTC, I was not a standout student. I actually struggled through many of my classes. The professors that I worked with exhibited so much grace and patience with me. During my time at OCTC, I was a primary caregiver for my father, and when my mother began having heart problems, I began taking care of her as well. I was juggling classes, working, and caring for my parents and my son. In 2016, I was working towards my human services degree when my father passed away. I was his primary caregiver for 2 years, and I was so thankful that I was able to do that. He fought hard and never stopped showing the love of God to those around him. I learned my hard work ethic from my father. He was always driven and did what he needed to do to reach goals that he had set before him. He loved each of us fiercely, and he was always so proud, no matter what was going on. 3 months later, I had my daughter. I was grieving, learning how to be a single mother of 2 children, and pushed my way through school. In 2017, my mother's cancer began to progress, so she started treatments. This time, my sister and I both were her primary caregivers. I had met my now fiance, Adam, and his daughter, who I claim as my own, Morgan, and I was continuing to take full-time classes at OCTC. I had a lot going on. One of these classes that I had to take was Math 150, and I cried probably more throughout that class, that and statistics, than any of my other classes in my college career. I'll never forget the compassion that my professor had for me. She left a massive impact. The day I was supposed to take my final, we found out that my mother's chemotherapy was no longer working. Her cancer was spreading progressively, and they were going to transfer her to Lexington because they could no longer help her here. They didn't know what to do. My professor allowed me to go be with my mother and complete my final at a later time. During this time, my sister and I we were able to be the ones who shaved her head, prayed with her, and got her on her transport out to Lexington. Those are moments that I will forever be grateful that I was able to have with her. My final semester at OCTC was filled with trips back and forth to Lexington to be with my mother, an internship with hospice, which probably was not the best idea, but I made it through, and managing to pass the rest of my required classes. I graduated in OCTC in May of 2018. I'm forever thankful I was able to walk across the stage. At that time, I had no idea that that was the last graduation my mother would ever see. With much encouragement and writing essays, which she's not in here, Jan Goldman helped rewrite my essay to get into Western multiple times. I was accepted into WKU's social work program. I was now working towards a degree I never felt that I was smart enough for. I really struggled with the thought of transitioning to a university from OCTC. I never felt like I was smart enough. I struggled here so much, but the professors encouraged. And I was actually working at the downtown campus when I applied for the social work program at Western. And just the encouragement from the community within OCTC pushed me to just at least try. I mean, what happens if you fail? Okay, that's fine. But they pushed me to try. And to my surprise, I became a 4.0 student, and I loved the program that I was in. And I was incredibly shocked. While working towards my degree, my mother received chemotherapy treatment and a bone marrow transplant. This was a very difficult time in our lives, and we were no way prepared for what the bone marrow transplant would do to her, not only physically, but mentally. We were constantly fighting for her life in one way or another. My final semester of my bachelor's degree at WKU was also when COVID first hit America. We were doing everything online. I completed my internship with DCBS virtually. The remainder of my classes were completed by Zoom, and my graduation was virtual. By God's grace, we made it through. My mother was in remission, and I was a real-life social worker. With the encouragement and staff, who were more like family to me, and the professors at WKU, I continued to apply to the Master of Social Work program. To my surprise, yet again, they accepted me. I guess they saw something in me that I did not know was there. In 2020, everything was going great. My mother was doing well, although her cancer had returned. The chemotherapy was working. I started classes, and life seemed to be calming down. In September, I was engaged to my wonderful now fiance on top of the world's second tallest mountain in the United States, which we got lost. He doesn't want me to tell you that because he's a Marine and he's embarrassed, but we got lost. And I was passing all of my classes with a 4.0 still. In October of that same year, we planned a trip to go visit my mother in Florida. When she began to get better, she moved in with my brother in Florida. So she had moved to Florida in January, and we were gonna go see her. Little did I know, though, on that trip, we would have to let her know that her chemotherapy had stopped working and there was nothing else that they could do. That was one of the hardest conversations I've ever had to have. The next week, my sister and I flew to Florida to bring her home to Kentucky. That 18-hour drive was rough. The cancer had spread to my mother's brain at this point, and she was struggling with her everyday tasks. That trip, however, provided some of the sweetest memories. I will never forget the number 7, and I will always ask for 7 M&Ms. 5 days later, my mother took her last breath and was reunited with my Father in heaven. The staff and professors at WKU were incredible. There's no way I would have made it through the remainder of the semester without the love and support of my friends, family, and classmates. I continued on not only for my family, but to honor my mother and father. Sorry. It's hard when you're pushing through and reaching all these goals and you lose both of your parents. But I wasn't going to let that stop me. Remember my father's hard work ethic. I graduated from Western with my Master of Social Work degree, and I have passed my state licensing exam. I'm officially CSW, which is Certified Social Worker, Amanda Brothers, almost Hamlet, and the newest behavioral mental health therapist at Counseling Connections here in town. My fiance and I just purchased a home together, and we are actually getting married next weekend in the heat rise. Maybe not our best choice, but you know. I'm also incredibly proud to say that my oldest daughter, Morgan, is enrolled at OCTC, and she will start chasing her dreams in the fall of 2022. A lot can change in 10 years, especially when you have this support and encouragement like I did. So I want to thank you all for helping me break the cycle from going from homelessness to my master's degree and building a solid foundation, not only for me, but also for my children and their futures. So thank you.